Hey, for Shadowhunters, Season 2, Episode 2, A Door into the Dark, and I was definitely really looking forward to this episode, more than I have for most Shadowhunters episodes, and that's mainly because of the fact that, like I told you guys, I love last week's premiere. Last week's premiere was everything I wanted the show to be. I thought that it was just a really great, kind of like, it was a way of, I think, kind of like revamping the show without actually revamping it. You know, characters went different directions. There were Aldertree was introduced, Jason Valentine. I mean, there's just a lot of interesting stuff going on last week, and I was really looking forward to this one. And while I don't think this episode was up to par with last week's, I do still think this was a great episode. I really did love it overall. There were a couple things that did piss me off, and a couple of lines here and there that I thought were a little bit cheesy, but for the most part, I still really did enjoy this episode. I'm liking where the season's going so far, and let's just get into so I can talk about pretty much everything that happened here. So we start off moments after last week, and as we know, we left Jason Valentine last week. We learned that Jocelyn's arrows had no effect on Valentine whatsoever, which I didn't expect it to. I mean, Valentine is not that, Valentine is that powerful for a reason, and so he can't be harmed. And once again, Valentine tries to convince Jace that Downworlders need to be taken care of before they take over the Shadow World, and he tells his son that deep down inside he knows he's right, and you can tell that Jace is really starting to get into his head. You know, it's kind of starting to work. Like, Jace is starting to think, okay, this might be the only thing I have to do, because there really is no other choice for him. Either he listens to Valentine, or Valentine's just going to keep torturing him. So you can tell that Jace doesn't want to listen to Valentine, but at the same time, he doesn't really know what else to do. I mean, you know, Valentine hasn't given him many options here. It really hasn't. So I can understand why he's been kind of starting to be very loyal towards Valentine. And Jocelyn reveals to Clary that Jace is not who she thinks he is, but Clary's still more trusting of Simon than she is of her mother, and that's understandable. Again, you know, Jocelyn just randomly told her all this stuff, and she also, we can tell, is not really looking for Clary's best interests, which most adults on this show aren't. They're doing what they feel is best. What Jocelyn feels is best is to take out Jace or take out Valentine, which is not what Clary wants to do. She wants to make sure that Jace comes home in one piece, and this does motivate Jocelyn to tell Clary about the demon blood experiments and how they made Jace evil, and we get this great scene where Jocelyn shows Clary a memory of baby Jace, who was able to kill and burn a flower with his mind, and this is back when he was a little child, and it's really creepy to think about, but yeah, I mean, he was able to burn a flower, and Jocelyn went to a warlock and found out that Jace would only cause death and destruction as he got older, so Jocelyn's known this for a long time. You know, she's harbored the secret clearly from Clary because she wanted to do whatever she could, so that way, you know, one, Clary didn't know about any of this, but now that she does, it's time that she reveals that, and I like that. I like that Jocelyn knew about this. I like that this wasn't something that only Valentine knew about, and I think it's very interesting the way we've seen that Jace has kind of been like this throughout the entire show. It definitely makes more sense, like I said, why Jace has been so powerful, you know, so much more powerful than everyone else throughout the show so far. So Simon plays devil's advocate for Clary, but he's then called by Lydia to see Aldertree, and Simon's arc this season is quite interesting, because as we know, he is trying to win Clary over, because now he knows he actually has a chance with her, but also he's told to go undercover to secure intel about the vamps. You know, we see that, as we know, Aldertree wants to do what he can to keep things in line and make sure that things don't get too corrupted, and I think we definitely get the sense that even if Aldertree is good, he is not looking for really anyone's best interest. He is doing what he feels is right for the Institute, and he's not really listening to anyone's suggestions, and that is definitely a problem. That's going to be a problem, I think, further down the line with Aldertree. It's just not really one yet, but I think it's going to be, and he's clearly nervous about having to seek information from the top because he knows that these are more experienced vampires. These people who's been vampires longer, he's not like them, and the direction Simon goes this episode, I'm very interested in seeing where he's going to go for us this season. But meanwhile, Clary approaches Alec, who instead of sympathizing with Clary over their brother, blames Clary for everything that has gone wrong since Jace first met her. And here's the part of the episode that kind of pissed me off. I really like the actor plays Alec. I like Alec's arc last year, but so far, not really digging him this season. He seems like he's down on everyone, and he's so pissed at everyone. And I understand his whole thing with Magnus, you know, where Magnus had that thing with Camille, and he was worried that was going to interfere, and he kind of just blamed Magnus because you take the anger out on the ones you love the most, but here, him and Clary were never really close to begin with, so why in God's name is he blaming Clary for what Jace did? Hell, she tried to stop him from what he did, so why is Clary the one to blame here? Just feels kind of bizarre, you know, the one to blame is Jace, so I'm not entirely sure why out of everyone, Alec decides, oh, I'm going to blame Clary for this, because yeah, Clary totally is the reason that this happened. It's really not at all. It's completely Jace's decision, and Clary really had nothing to do with it. So that whole part of the episode just felt a bit strange to me. I felt like this was just here to add tension between Alec and Clary, which I get, definitely, but it didn't really feel like something Alec would do. It felt more like, oh, it's my parabatai, and I'm pissed off, but why are you blaming Clary? It just didn't make sense. I get that Clary and Alec have had animosity between each other for a while because of Alec liking Jace, but that's long gone. Alec does not have that crush on Jace anymore. He thinks of Jace as a brother now, and now, I don't know why he and Clary need to have this animosity between each other. It just feels kind of strange. So, at the Institute, Lydia announced that fighters have been kidnapped from dojos and fighting centers, and they believe that Valentine's abducting talent mundanes to recruit them for his army, which that is a very interesting idea. We've seen that his army is multiplying. It's getting bigger and bigger by the minute, and this is a very interesting theory that I think very well could be true. And Aldertree doesn't want Isabella or Alec to help on the mission, but Lydia convinces him otherwise, that they actually would need them, because, they are ones that are experienced, and they know the ways of Valentine more than Aldertree does, and Clary tries to go with Isabel, but Alec tells her off, and she finds herself alone with her sketchbooks until Isabella appears to apologize, and I like this. I like that Isabella is trying to get on Clary's side. I like the bond that they're forming, and she reminds Clary that she does have a family and that she's wanted and that she has me and that, that she has her and that's not going to change. And I think it's just a really nice bond they're giving her. Like I said, they didn't give Isabella a ton to do last season, but I feel this season is really servicing her better, and I'm really enjoying that overall. So Luke reminds the other werewolves that Simon's allowed to stay, but the mean girl werewolf tells Simon to keep out of sight, and Simon retreats to a storage unit but is cornered by Raphael, and Raphael thinks Simon told Aldertree that he's the one who's guilty, and Raphael tells Simon that he must find Camille or he will burn Simon one body part at a time. So this is obviously a no-brainer. He kind of just has to do this even if he doesn't want to, which is quite interesting, but on the ship, Jace talks to new recruits, including Jeremy, who's eager to join Valentine's team to get revenge on Downworlders, and Jocelyn finds that Clary has escaped the Institute. She's heading for her old art studio, and that was something that was very interesting. Something that they really didn't do a lot last year is they didn't really show who Clary was apart from her being a Shadowhunter. They showed her being a Shadowhunter, they showed her getting to learn things, but they didn't really show much of her besides that, and it seems like this season they really are. Like I said, I'm caring about Clary a lot more this season. I'm seeing that more tough side of her, that more rebellious side, and her going to her old art studio definitely is a very good example of that. She's not letting anyone tell her what to do, and I love that. And Alec and Isabella arrive at a fighting center where a giant-like bodybuilder approaches Isabella, not expecting her to be able to fight, and of course she easily takes him down, which that was an awesome scene. Again, Isabella she might be very attractive and may look very, very skinny, but I mean, if you mess with her, she will kick your ass, and I really did love that scene overall. She earns applause from the crowd, and one of Valentine's Shadowhunters has come for the men. Izzy fought, but before they can get answers out of him about Valentine's ship, the man slits his own throat just because they're not going to give them information, obviously. So that was pretty crazy to think about, and I can't believe they showed that in a Freeform show, but I like this. I like that Freeform is getting away with this stuff, because that's what Freeform wanted to do. They wanted to go in darker territory, and this is the perfect example of how they do that. So, on the hunt for Camille, Simon seeks help from Magnus, and just like last week, Simon is still keeping the quirky comic React alive, saying that can he take a break from his day job and help a vamp out, and I like this. I don't really think we saw a lot of Simon-Magnus interaction. Most of it was Magnus and Alec, and what I like is that since Magnus and Alec are kind of on the rocks right now, Magnus is getting to do a lot more in the show, and his bond with Simon particularly is something I'm very interested in. He does decide to do it in exchange for a piece of Simon's hair, and he agrees to help, and we'll get more into that in a little bit, but Jocelyn tells Luke that Clary didn't activate her anti-tracking rune, and that she needs Luke to convince Clary that the mundane world isn't safe for her. Jocelyn's convinced that Clary will listen to Luke and take his advice, since she's known Luke a lot longer, and she trusts his word, and Luke agrees they have to find Clary, and Simon and Magnus have then somehow portaled to India, and I love that they just randomly got there. Like, it literally took them through a portal, but Simon's still getting used to the portal travel, asking if there are YouTube tutorials he can watch, and Simon is still the comic relief of this show, and I love that. I love that even though he is a very convincing arc, he still has comic relief, and what it does really well is that it gives the character more to do, but it doesn't try to change the character. That's something that challenged understanding very well this season. They're not trying to change him. He's evolving. He is still the comic relief guy, but he is starting to become a lot more than that, and I really am liking that so far. So knowing that Camille likes to spend winters in Indiana, they look throughout her home, except Magnus is more interested in finding his unreturned possessions than helping Simon actually find Camille. And Simon's not too confident, asking why would he need a powerful warlock when he's got a scrappy nerd from Brooklyn. He doesn't fully understand that, and Magnus says Simon what he's so afraid of. Simon answers him literally saying elevators, snakes, clowns, and Raphael's trying to burn his junk off, and Magnus reminds him that he's tougher than he thinks, and it's time to man up. And yeah, I would agree with Magnus. I mean, he is a vampire. A vampire can do a lot more things that human Simon couldn't do. He can bite people, he can drink blood, he has much better strength. Like, he is just a lot more powerful, and he's not really utilizing that very well. So I like the way that Magnus, I think, is going to try to train him and things like that. I'm looking forward to seeing where that's going to go. But Luke and Jocelyn find Clary drawing at the art studio. Upset that Luke is not taking sides with Jocelyn, she lashes out about her conflicted identity. And I like this. I like that Clary's starting to get confused because she's not a mundane, she's not a Shadowhunter, she's not anything. She doesn't really know what she is, and she feels like she's kind of in the middle of this situation, and everyone's accusing her of things, and she does not want to be treated that way. You got Alec accusing her of causing Jace, causing what happened to Jace. But then you have Jocelyn who doesn't want her to fight. You have Aldertree who wants her to stay completely out of things. So really, what is she supposed to do? And yeah, it makes a lot of sense why she's starting to be very conflicted about that. Because she's not fully Shadowhunter. She's not fully human. She storms out of the studio and runs into a zombie version of Dot. That was very strange. She grabs Clary's arm and portals her before Luke and Jocelyn can stop them. They know this is a terrible idea, but Clary goes anyway. And again, Clary's not just going to say no. She's going to do where she feels she fits best. And I like that. I like this more rebellious, rebellious side of Clary. It's just something we didn't get last season, and it makes sense why she's our main character. So Clary finds herself on Valentine's ship. Dot places her hands on Clary's head, fills her mind with visions of death and violence, telling Clary that this is what she's capable of, and we're not completely sure what she means, but this can't be good, obviously. She's clearly trying to put visions into Clary's head, and we don't know what that's all about, but Luke and Jocelyn realize that the marks on Dot's face are from Valentine's injections, but Luke has found a way to find Jace through his parabatized bond, and Jocelyn goes back to the Institute to find Alec, and tells him, except Alec isn't keen on the idea, and rightfully so, because, he wants to help him find his brother so he can try and kill him again, which that's all Jocelyn wants to do. She thinks the only way to save Jace is, in fact, to kill him, and I get it. I get that she knows that he has this bloodlust, and that he's a lot more dangerous than everyone thinks he is, but at the same time, killing him is not really going to solve any fix any problems. It's just going to make things more complicated. It's just going to make things worse, and I don't think Jocelyn is really thinking through about all these consequences. She's just kind of doing what she thinks is the right idea, when again, not really listening to anyone else, and that's a problem that many of the adults seem to have, and it's this whole other layer to the show that we have not had before. So Jocelyn tells him that she doesn't want to find Jace, but rather she wants to find Clary, who is taken to the ship by Dot. And Isabella convinces Alec to let her do that. And on the ship, Clary approaches Jace, who thinks it's just Valentine playing more tricks, because the amount of times that Valentine's done this, he doesn't believe anything at this point, and I like that. I like that he's gotten a lot more smarter, a lot more aware of what Valentine's doing. Just through 2 episodes, but it makes sense. I mean, Valentine's done a lot of mind games so far, and he's done everything he can to try to get Jace on his side, and try to, see if he can prove his loyalty. So he's not believing this at all, and he holds her in a headlock. Clary has to tell him his stories to convince her brother that it's really her. He believes her, and Clary tells him that Dot brought her there, and Clary tells Jace that she can see the future, that she guesses that she's not the ordinary Shadowhunter, and neither is he, and in her visions, Clary saw the Downworlders slaughtering the Mundanes, and she tells Jace that he's the only one who can stop them. Valentine finds the 2 of them together, invites them to go hunt a werewolf with Jeremy, one of the new Shadowhunter recruits, and Jace refuses to allow Clary to go. He just doesn't feel that she wants to be a part of this, and offers to take her place so she doesn't have to fight, because he knows she doesn't want to do that. But honestly, I think Clary kind of does want to do that. She does want to fight. She wants to do whatever she can to find Jace, and you can tell that, there's a part of her that kind of wants to help. And on his search for Camille, Simon encounters a snake, locked in a room with it. His Encanto spell still doesn't work, and Simon struggles to find the snake. He keeps trying to convince himself that he can be the one in control. He's saying that you're a vampire, Dan, but then the snake breathes fire. Simon immediately screams for Magnus to come to his rescue. It's kind of like an Indiana Jones type scene, which was really funny, actually. And Magnus can't hear him, we see. Simon's forced to control the snake with his mind, and I like this. I like that Simon was forced to fend for himself, that Magnus couldn't do this for him. With a little too much excitement, Simon's successful at encantoing the snake, who turns out to be Magnus's lovable pet, and it's just a really satisfying scene. Seeing Simon get more in touch with his powers, realize more of what he's capable of, is something I'm very interested in seeing, and I can't wait to see where they're going to go with that, because again, it just gives Simon a lot more to do than just be the comic relief of the show, and that's something that in general, I think the whole him turning into a vampire is really done very well, and I think it's really utilized the actor very well, because like I said, I still think he is the best actor on the show, and I still stick by that. He really is terrific, and Isabel is hesitant to let Alec try to link to Jace because Jocelyn tells him that Alec will be in danger and that the procedure will be taxing on his body, but Alec is adamant about going through with it, saying that he cannot live without his brother, and there really is no other question. This is not a question, he's going to do it. He's going to do whatever he can to save his brother. He just doesn't feel whole without him. He feels incomplete. He has that parabatai bond. Those two need to be together, or else Alec feels kind of like he's dying and that a half of him isn't there, and it's really complicated to think about, but it makes a ton of sense. All that talk about the paratai bond, as much as it annoyed me in season 1, you can get why we heard about all of that, because Alec is not the same person without it, and sure, him accusing Clary, I get that might make him that way, but this is more what I want to see with Alec, with him kind of not feeling like himself. I think it's very interesting overall, and I can't wait to see where that's going to go in future episodes. So Clary's back in a cage on the ship, realized that she was put under a spell. She can't actually see into the future, and when she was talking with Jason Valentine earlier, she wasn't in control of what she was saying. So this is very interesting, we found this out. Dot admits that she was forced to put Clary under a spell. Clary has to do whatever Dot says while she's under the spell, but it does wear off quickly, and Clary reminds Dot that they used to be like sisters. Clary tries to convince Dot to help them both escape, and in preparation to connect Alec to Jace, Jocelyn warns Alec to stay near the surface, and Isabella tells him that if he gets lost, she will kick his ass when he gets back, and Alec takes the stone. We can see several visions of Jace and Alec together from when they were young, and before we see anything else, we're back in Magnus's apartment. Though they haven't found Camille, Magnus does tell Simon that they will continue to work together. Simon's elated, saying he's going to be like his downworlder sponsor, and Magnus doesn't really see it that way. I think he sees it more himself as a trainer rather than a sponsor, but I like this. I like the bond they have. It's a different kind of bond that we didn't have last season, and I really am liking that. So then we get to the ending here, and the ending of this episode is pretty damn insane. I mean, I really don't know where we're going to go here, but Jace is tasked by Valentine to kill a werewolf on the ship. Jeremy tells Jace that this wolf killed an innocent mundane, and Jace puts his blade to her throat, interrogating her. She repeats that she's innocent and that she keeps to the accords. It's a very similar scene to last week with Maria, we see, but meanwhile, Clary and Dot sneak behind them. Clary can't help herself. She approaches Jace. She tells him that she was under a spell before and she hadn't been in control of what she was saying. They bolt away from Valentine together, but there's no way off the ship. Jace fights some of Valentine's men. Alec can see the fight, and shaking on the bed, Alec's nose begins to bleed, which makes Jace's nose bleed too. Alec's gone too far, and he loses consciousness, dropping the stone onto the floor. So we don't know what's going on there, if Alec is going to be okay or not. So he's now lost consciousness, and Valentine calls for Jace to come back to him. Dot breaks apart of the force field around the ship. Was this a door into the dark? And Jace and Clary jump out into the water. Valentine kills the werewolf again, not being able to. Jace couldn't do it himself, and he tells his men to throw her overboard. He then commands for Dot to be returned to the prison under the ship, and that is the way the episode ends overall. Really crazy stuff, but let's get into this episode where I think we're going to go from here. So just like last week, a lot of really interesting stuff going on in this episode. What I really did love the most about it, though, were all the different character bonds that we had, between Simon and Magnus, or Clary and Isabella, or her and Dot, and things like that. A lot of stuff we didn't get to see last year, but let's first talk about what's going on with Clary and Jace, because as we know, Clary is now with Jace, and now they're going to be held captive together, and who knows what Valentine's plan is. Now that he has both of his children together, and he can hold them as prisoners, who knows what exactly he's going to try to do, because there's definitely more up Valentine's sleeve, and like I said, I'm definitely seeing that evil side of Valentine him more. Why? Because they're actually giving him good stuff to do. The actor's actually getting into the role, and I think they're doing a good job with making him somewhat intimidating. I'm definitely getting that intimidating side from him in a way I didn't last season, and that already is adding to the show, because that was something that I didn't feel last season. I didn't feel that intimidating. I didn't feel like Valentine was someone that could really cause damage, and this season I do. I feel like this is a guy that could kick someone's ass, and this is a guy that you really don't want to mess with, and I'm definitely getting that side from Valentine in a way I didn't last season, and I'm really liking that so far. But let's talk about what's going on with Clary, of course. You know, now we see the dot. She's putting these visions into her head. She's putting this spell. She's putting her under the spell. How much farther is that going to go? You know, what does Valentine really want from her? We don't really know. I think that's going to be interesting as well. Clearly, Dot was there as a spy, and I like that we now know what Valentine's initial plan is. That he's trying to get all the Downworlders against the Shadowhunters and to blame, you know, because they obviously are very pissed off for the Shadowhunters and try to get all the Mundanes to turn to Shadowhunters. I think that's very interesting overall. And I'm interested in seeing really where that's going to go. They're setting up that war pretty well, even though it's only episode 2. I like that we know pretty much the extent of what Valentine plans to do. It just makes it just really ups the stakes and makes us know more of what's going on, and I really do like that. My only complaint, like I said, was Alec. I'm not entirely sure where they're going with this character. I like the whole thing of Alec not being there without Jace and him not having that bond with him, but I'm a little scared about this arc because I don't want this to be something where, oh, he finds Jace next episode and everything's okay. No, I want Jace to remain kidnapped. I want Jace to be able to be as close to Valentine as possible so Jace can continue to have those visions in his head. You know, that to me is one of the most interesting parts of the show right now. The fact that Valentine is planting all this information into his head. The way that Valentine's trying to turn him, you know, against everyone pretty much, and the way that Jace kind of is just kind of taking it right now because he really doesn't have any other plan. He kind of just has to take it from him. There really isn't anything else that Jace can do. Either he's going to listen to Valentine or he's going to be again imprisoned and Valentine's just going to keep torturing him. So he really can't do anything else, and I'm hoping that Alec isn't the one to save him. I just don't want to see that happen. I feel like it'd be too easy to happen. I honestly want to see Alec suffer. I really do. I think Alec, as much as I did care about his character last year, I really kind of do want to see him suffer here. I can see, you know, why he feels incomplete without Jace, but I feel like, you know, that's something that the show needs to understand. I think they're understanding it pretty well this year, at least in these first 2 episodes, that in order to care about a character, we need to see them suffer, and that's something we didn't really get to see last year. It's not because I don't like Alec, it's just that I need to see him suffer in order to care for the storyline. So I'm interested in seeing really where that's going to go. What happened to him? How did he lose consciousness? Is he going to be okay? I know they're not going to kill off Alec. He's a main character. There's no way they're going to do that, but we'll have to see what happens next week, because I'm definitely interested in seeing where that's going to go. The other big thing about all this is Jocelyn and Luke. What I like about this is that none of the adults seem to have Clary's best interest at heart. You know, Clary wants to do what she can. She has 2 requests. 1, that Jace return. 2, that he return alive, and that he return completely unharmed. Jocelyn, we can see, is not really into that idea. And I get that Jocelyn's more experienced, you know, she's known about this stuff for longer, but killing Jace is not going to do anything. It's not going to solve any problem. All that's going to do is add fuel to the fire. You know, Clary already has so much against her mother for keeping this from her and not telling her what was going on. So just killing Jace, all that's going to do is just turn her further against Clary, which obviously she doesn't want. You know, she wants to keep Clary as close to her as possible, and having Clary, you know this, you know, having, you know, going against Clary like this isn't really doing anything. So I like that Jocelyn isn't having her best interest at heart, but Jocelyn really needs to think about what she's doing if she wants to keep her daughter close to her, because she's going to end up going rogue if she doesn't listen to her daughter. You know, Clary clearly this season is a lot more sneaky and just a lot more, I don't want to say intimidating, she's just a lot more manipulative than she was last season. She's a lot more independent, that's the word. She's a lot more independent. She's not just going to easily give in to people. She's not easily influenced, and that's something that I really do love about her this season. It just gives us a much more of a reason to root for Clary, because yes, Clary is doing the right thing. Clary does want to save Jace, and this is why why, you know, we want to care about Clary. And that's something I had a problem with last season, is why is Clary our main character? It just kind of felt like she was an afterthought. This season, she's feeling like a main character, and that I'm really enjoying so far. I also really like Isabella and Clary's bond, the way that Isabella's telling her, look, I have your best interest at heart, and I really feel that at the end of the day, you know, when people keep isolating themselves from Clary, because she clearly has isolated herself from quite a few people, Jocelyn, Luke, Alec, Isabella is still there for her, and I like that. I like that Isabella still has her interest at heart. I like the fact that Isabella is trying to help Clary, and I like the fact that she wants to save Jace in the best way possible. I like the direction that that's headed. I get why Jocelyn isn't really thinking that way, but I like that, Isabella does have Clary's best interest at heart when other people don't. I also really like this arc of Clary kind of confused. You know, is she a Shadowhunter? Is she a human? And it makes sense why she is that way, because of the fact that, again, she hasn't really done much. You know, no one really seems to welcome her being a Shadowhunter. No one really seems to let her be a Shadowhunter. How is she supposed to be a Shadowhunter if Aldertree doesn't want her to do anything? Aldertree's telling her, you know, stay out of this, don't do that, you know, all these ridiculous rules. How is she supposed to do anything if he's just going to make her sit out? You know, there's nothing that, there's no way that Clary is going to be able to do anything if he's just going to keep having her sit out all the time. It makes sense why Clary, again, you know, doesn't want to listen to Aldertree, because Aldertree, again, doesn't have her best interest at heart, and you very much understand that. And then the only other thing to really talk about is Magnus and Simon. I love where this is going. I really do. One, because it's a bond that we didn't have really at all last season. I can really think of Simon and Magnus having maybe one or two scenes, but the bond they have here, you know, Simon had scenes with Luke last year. Luke was the person he had the most interactions with, and he definitely does this season, but I like that Magnus is training Simon. I think that's the perfect person to train. You know, Magnus is very confident. Magnus is someone who's so big and boisterous and really knows who he is, and when it comes to Shadowhunters, he definitely knows how to help Simon. He definitely is going to help him in the way that Simon wants him to, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this bond is going to go. It's just another way to develop Simon in a way that we didn't last season. I'm liking the direction this is going. I like that Magnus is really helping him out. I like that Simon is starting to get, you know, help from Magnus. I like where that's going. Simon's tapping into his powers. You know, Magnus, you can tell, does definitely want, does not, I don't think he has feelings for Camille, but he definitely does want to fix things with Camille, so I'm interested in seeing where that's going to go. But also subsequently, you know, how is this really going to help Simon? Because Simon is, in fact, kind of helping out himself, and I love the direction that's headed. Overall, guys, another really great episode. Besides a couple cheesy dialogue here and there, because there were a couple dialogue scenes that were a little bit dumb, just some obvious things here and there. I can't really point out anything specifically, and besides Alec's arc, which I really don't know where it's headed, not so much that I don't get it. I get that Alec isn't himself right now. I'm just not entirely sure where that's going to go, and I'm hoping that things stay intense. I don't want them to rush things. I don't want them to have Jace be saved next episode. No, keep Jace separated. Keep Jace separated from everyone. Keep Jace so he can get fully into Valentine's mind. You know, have him be, swayed by Valentine. I love the direction this is headed. This season already is impressing me so much more than last year's. I love the direction that everything is going. I think all the storylines are quite interesting. And I am going to give this episode of Shadowhunters Season 2, Episode 2, A Door into the Dark, a 4 out of 5 or a B+. Though I didn't enjoy it as much as last week's, there still are some great character moments, some great storylines going on, and just in general, I'm a lot more compelled than I was last year. They're giving me a lot more of a reason to root for these characters, a lot more reason to watch this show in general, and that's something to say. I really wasn't excited for Shadowhunters last year, and for me to say that I'm very excited for it now is already a huge improvement. But with them having great storylines and upping the stakes, you can really tell they're doing all they can to make this show better, and that's something that is very much impressing me, and they're definitely succeeding with thus far. So overall, guys, my review of Shadowhunters. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Love your thoughts on it. Do you like the direction that everything is going? Do you agree with what I said? Is there something that I didn't get? And guys, I know there's stuff that happened in the books that I don't know about. Just try to keep that to a minimum. I'm not saying you guys try to spoil stuff, but I know you guys want to spoil stuff. I've seen all your comments that you guys want to spoil stuff about the show. Please try not to. I like to go into these, shows about that have book adaptations as fresh as possible, and I want to keep doing that with Shadowhunters, so please try not to spoil anything. But that's it for this video. Hope you're going to enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the series premiere of Taboo. I am going to get an early review out for you guys because it's actually already available online, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.